Welcome in everybody to another one of my time-lapse builds. We're here on my historical server where I've got several of these builds. Today's video is going to be a little different. I'm going to do a little more talking and a little bit less time-lapsing, I suppose. I wanted to go ahead and do some tips and tricks of how I go about building these amazing structures. Trick number one is going to be location. The location of where you build is just as important as the building itself. For me, when I was starting this building, I decided that I wanted to put it up a little bit higher because I wanted it to be able to stand out. If I put it down on a lowland, kind of like near the arch, it would just kind of blend in with the trees and everything. So I wanted to put it up a little bit higher. One of the other building tips that I have for you guys is choose a scale. Choose a scale that would be appropriate for your building. For me, it's really easy because these are all historical buildings, so I'm going off their historical measurements. These are all based off of the dimensions that they were in real life, and so you get a really good idea of how big these buildings are. But when you're trying to freeform a building or build one in your base or in your town, think about the scale. Does a house need to be massive, or should it be a little smaller? Think about the scale when you're deciding to build. It will help a lot, and you can fit a lot of details into different size buildings, but just have a solid idea of what's going to fit best in your area. The next one that I want to talk about is the small things, just the details. By themselves, they don't really make that big of a difference. Like when you're further back, you can barely see that there's a difference in blocks going around the top, but when you get closer, you can see that having different blocks in here really helps to break it up. Similarly, when you're underneath, as you're walking, you see just a little bit of a disruption in the pattern where there are these chiseled quartz blocks that interrupt the bricks. And they just help to draw the eye upwards a little bit. So it really is just the small things. Sometimes it doesn't have to be flashy, you don't have to do anything crazy, but just small details can really help make a build that much more complete. Another trick that I wanted to go ahead and cover is just what I'm going to call depth. Essentially what it is making sure that your build is not flat, because flat gets very, very boring. So you can see what I've got up here, up in the little truss where I've got it inset a couple blocks, and this just helps to add a little bit more detail, and if I wanted to, I could go ahead and add in some more statues to help fill that in. But you can also see as we come through the roof where I've got it inset, it's not just straight lines. There's disruptions in the patterns that help break it up and just help to stop it from looking too boxy. And so if you're able to add in depth, you can add in just enough detail to make everything look that much better. And the shadow and lightings come into play, but I want to talk about lighting a little bit later. The last bit that I want to cover is just lighting. Lighting makes such a difference on a build where there's a very big difference between something being very brightly lit and being very dimly lit. You can see when we have the roof on here, you can see that we get a bit of a shadow effect on here, where the inner parts of the building are quite a bit darker than the outer bits and kind of give it that more mysterious feel. Similarly, when we go ahead and move inside of the building, you can see that I opted to keep it fairly dimly lit as well, using some fires and then the soul lanterns, which don't provide a ton of light either. So you end up with this almost ominous vibe in here. Lighting is an amazing trick to create an ambiance or an atmosphere in a build without having to do anything else. A dimly lit room is going to feel a little more mysterious, a little more spooky almost. Whereas if something is very, very bright, it feels a lot more joyous and open. So just play with the lighting a little bit. Decide what you're going to try for, and it can really make a big difference without changing any other blocks. Just the lighting. So those are 5 more building tips that I have for you guys. If you liked them, please drop a thumbs up. If you hated them, please drop a thumbs down. If you want to see some more of these other buildings in the world being built, I do have videos. I'll drop the link to the playlist down below. But as always, keep building, and I will catch you guys in the next one.